to the Agenda Tech Podcast. This week on the show, I host Kevin Goldberg, the CEO of IS2 Digital and a seasoned technology expert with over 30 years of experience in helping young businesses turn complex tech into practical solutions. You're welcome to the show, Mr. Kevin Goldberg. This is the Agenda Tech Podcast. Welcome again. It's an online discussion that focuses on issues at the intersection of science, gender, and technology. And I'm so privileged that I'm hosting you. Thank you for reaching out, and thank you for the back and forth has really been a lot. Getting a suitable time that works for both of us. You know,
Exactly.
it was really for something, you know. So the whole of last week, actually, I sat on two panels talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about the same things that we sort of discussed with you during our calls. Others were talking about issues around whether artificial intelligence is going to take their jobs. And then there were also discussions around artificial intelligence, AI, won't take your job, but someone who uses AI will, you know. So the discussions were really intrigued, and I would just borrow your mind as we get into our discussion. So according to you, maybe you tell us briefly about where you work, your company, what it does, and that will start informing the discussion that we are going to get into. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And nice to see you. It has been a little bit to get this going. So I'm Kevin Goldberg. I have a company called IS2 Digital, and we focus on small, medium-sized business technology solutions, working to automate the behind-the-scenes processes that keep a business running. And got into artificial intelligence many years ago, obviously with ChatGPT's iPhone moment in November of 22. Everybody's been talking about AI. The truth is, and we'll talk about that a little bit today, the truth is we've been automating things for years and years and years and years. What artificial intelligence does, what the large language model does, is it allows us to automate some things that we weren't able to automate before. So we're in this very, very fast-moving time, and my company is really well positioned to help organizations implement and deploy solutions with artificial intelligence.
Wow, impressive. How has that been going? How has been the reception from the organizations that you're working with?
Truthfully, it's slow. You know, what you read in the headlines is not, in my experience, not the reality on the ground. Part of the reason that is because the headlines talk about artificial intelligence in a number of different ways, but I think most importantly, we're seeing the large companies, really, really large mega corporations, have the money, have the time, have the infrastructure to implement these large solutions where we're reading about 30% reduction in costs and layoffs, whereas the medium and small businesses, those are much smaller steps, and we are implementing those, but we're not making headlines with that stuff. But we are seeing slow, steady progression towards automating processes and leveraging large language models to do things, again, that we couldn't do before.
Okay, sounds really interesting. Let's talk about the small businesses. I believe there are a couple of businesses that have not yet ventured into AI, right? And they could be having this feeling of being left out into this whole AI revolution, into migrating from the traditional and leveraging AI. So what sort of mental shift should they have, okay, for them before preparing themselves into taking on AI? Because there's other people, by the way, who do not understand what artificial intelligence is. Yeah.
Right, right. So I think that's a great place to start. And I'll just tell a story about a meeting I had where I was speaking with a business owner talking about artificial intelligence, and he said, "Look, my company doesn't need it. We're not a tech company. I don't really see where it's going to benefit me." And we were having a Zoom meeting, and we kept talking, and I pointed out, for example, that if he was using a spam filter or using advanced Google search, that he's already using artificial intelligence. We just didn't call it that back then, and that you could see that he was interested and intrigued in that idea. And then I said, you know what, let me pause the meeting for a minute. I got to give you a call back. And what I did is I took the Zoom transcript, gave it to an AI to summarize, and I emailed it to him. And I waited a minute, and then I got back on the call, and I said, "Did you get the email?" And he said, "No, let me go check." So he went and checked the email. He started reading through it, and he said, "This is incredible. How did you do that so quickly?" And I said, "I didn't do it at all." That is an example of artificial intelligence. And you could see his eyes just lit up, and he was like, okay, I get it. I see where it might be helpful even in my business, which is not tech-centric.
Oh, sounds very interesting. I would like to know more. So, like, did that experience sort of help to shift their perception about AI or about ChatGPT? Was that experience a bit something that helped to shift their mental thinking from either using AI to was it helpful?
Yeah, no, absolutely. He definitely at that point he started asking me questions. How could I get into it? What are the things that I need to do to learn more? And we spent a decent amount of time talking about what he could do, what the
Yeah.
steps that he could take to start engaging, to start learning more, and to start seeing where it might fit in his business.
Nice. And then we also know that there's a couple of chief executive officers who do not know how to code and they're scared of getting to use artificial intelligence. Um, just for the benefit of someone who has never known of, has never heard of AI, like how would you as someone who has been very you've worked hard into ensuring that small companies, small individuals, and other executives learn how to leverage this particular migration and this particular technology. So how does a CEO who doesn't know how to code, is not very digitally literate? By digital literate, I mean someone who can easily type, someone who can easily send emails back and forth. What can you tell them? How can you help them learn how to use ChatGPT, how to use artificial intelligence? Because I believe there are different models, right, of artificial intelligence that serve different purposes.
Absolutely. So I think getting into different models is an advanced type of discussion. But the way I see engaging with artificial intelligence is sort of stepping up a ladder of skills. If you were learning to surf, you wouldn't go out and surf the 15-foot waves. If you were learning to ski, you wouldn't be skiing, the big moguls. Or if you were learning to play the violin, you wouldn't, be playing at a symphony. So
Yeah.
what I believe is that there are some steps that you need to take. So the first thing that I would recommend is go and use one of the online large language models, chatbots, artificial intelligence, whatever term you're comfortable with. But we're talking about the big ones currently are Google's Gemini, OpenAI's ChatGPT, and Anthropic's Claude. And I would say go on and just play, experiment. Don't put any private information into these chats because on the free models, they use that information in their training, but get familiar with what it can do, how it responds, what information, learn something that you were curious about, or engage in, getting a recipe or anything that you think might be interesting and experiment. And to me, that's sort of level one, is just getting used to using these systems. From there, then you could start actually considering paying for the system. So step up and go to a paid model. The benefit of a paid model we'll talk about in a moment, but one of the most important benefits is you can have the chats that you have be private. So no longer will these companies be able to use your information in their training. Once you're on a paid version, you can start moving forward into understanding more about prompting and context and understanding the nuance of the different ways you can ask a question of AI and its responses. And you'll start to, again, get more and more familiar with it. And one of the things I would say at this point is to start brainstorming with it. To say, hey, I've got a business that does this. Where are some of the ways that I could use artificial intelligence? And interact with the AI system and have it give you some ideas. It's going to be very positive. They all tend to be very positive and sometimes maybe too positive. You may find that it agrees with everything that you say. And one of the tricks that we've learned is you could say to the model, you can type in, don't always agree with me. Push back on my ideas. Challenge me.
Right.
And there are more steps after that. We can get into understanding context. We can understand projects and connectors where you can actually have your AI connect with your Gmail or your calendar, or if you're using a task management system, there are tons of tools that it can connect with, read, and inform you. So you could set up a daily reminder system that's includes your calendar, your spouse's calendar, your email, and every morning you can wake up and in your inbox from your AI can be a reminder of what the key things are on your day and your spouse's day, and continue moving forward in that way. So start off small and learn and grow, and that really is the way to do it. You don't need to be a coder, and really you never need to be a coder to get a lot out of AI.
Oh, I like where you say that you can sync artificial intelligence with your calendar, so you get to know what the other person is doing. Especially for parents who like to monitor their children's movements. When you sync AI with your calendar, you get to know where your children are, where your spouse are. Don't you think that is a bit extreme in terms of privacy? Isn't that infringing on someone's privacy, especially if I have some personal business that I need to take care of and my partner or my parent is on top of everything?
That's one of the reasons why I suggested that you start off, you could be in a free model, and that you don't have privacy over the chats that you have. But as soon as you're on a paid version, your chats are private. The companies have committed to not using that information in their training. So yeah, it is a concern for sure. Everybody, I think, has that same concern. But if we're trusting the companies that are putting out these products, and certainly a couple of them I do, then I don't believe that they're going to take any of that information and use that. It's just for you and anybody you share that with, just like anything else. If you share your Google Calendar with your spouse, then sharing it with your AI and having your AI give you some data about that, to me, it's sort of the same thing.
Nice, 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 nice. I hope. Oh yeah, I hope that's hard. So I also love the fact that your company, IS2 Digital, right, supports organization, supports supports actual businesses to solve problems using softwares, right? So how, let's say you're supporting me and you're helping me solve my actual business problems. How am I supposed to know that this particular problem needs AI to fix? And
That's a good
how do
question.
I
Yeah,
differentiate between a problem that needs AI to fix and a problem that just needs a super fix or just needs a technician to come and take care of? Like how
it's a
do
great
I
question.
break between the two?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question, and I have a really good example. So first of all, what I tell the CEOs or COOs or chief marketing officers that I'm meeting with is to think of artificial intelligence as a new employee. So a new employee comes into your organization. They don't know everything about your organization, and they have the skills that they have, but they need to be trained. They need to be taught about what it is that your organization can do. So if we're talking about a task that you want to delegate to AI, the question is, if we brought in a new employee, could that new employee be delegated that same task? Or is there
Right.
something that requires judgment or deep knowledge about clients or how your business works? And that's really how you want to separate it. So if the task is repetitive, clear, low stakes, then that's something that you can have AI do, just like you could have a brand new employee do. But if the task requires, again, understanding, say, finance or compliance or a legal issue, or really needs to interact with additional data that requires an understanding of your business more than just sort of surface,
Yeah.
then that's probably not something that you want AI to take on initially.
Oh, so that basically means that there are certain tasks that are AI specific, and there are certain tasks that we can do ourselves, right?
Absolutely. It's a big term if you're reading about artificial intelligence in the news. A term that comes up often is human in the loop, HITL. And what that means is that you can have artificial intelligence, you can have an automation running processes for you, doing things for you and for your business, but at some point in the process, you want to have a human review that. So, for example, the earlier story that I was talking about where Zoom wrote up the meeting notes.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, but if you're sending that to a client, you want to double check that. You don't want to just
Yeah.
send it out without reviewing it. You wouldn't do that if a junior employee took notes on your meeting. So you want to do the same thing when AI takes notes on your meeting. So it's the same thing. You want to make sure that there's a human in the loop in the process when you're dealing with finance, governance, legal, uh, client relationships, employee relationships. Those are areas where you really want the human to have the final say.
Okay, I think this is actually good news. It's good news in the fact that people shouldn't get scared, right? That AI is coming to take over their jobs, that AI is going to render them jobless, or just there doing nothing. It's because there are certain tasks that humans can do, and there are certain tasks that are AI specific, especially with the influx of new technology. Nice. So I think that's good news for the people who had lots of doubts that AI was coming for their jobs. Yeah. And then Kevin, we all know that every single day there is a new type of AI or a new form of AI that drops every single day. So let's say, take for example, I'm a very young and busy business owner. Okay, how am I supposed to know that this is the AI that works for me and something that I should it's that and is something that is worth investing my time in, and the other one is just a distraction? Because I believe, you talked about AI and ChatGPT and other forms of artificial intelligence being business specific. So how does a young and busy business owner differentiate between a distraction and something that can actually solve a problem?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think an important thing to understand is that the companies that are building the large language models, again, the big three are Google's Gemini, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, and recently Facebook Meta just came out with a new large language model, so we'll see how that does. And there are others. But those large language models are the artificial intelligence brain. They are the processing, they are the logic behind the system. And those systems keep coming out with new versions and they keep getting better. I want to separate that from a tool that uses artificial intelligence in its processing. So those are two very different things. And these tools, those are coming out, a million a day. I mean, the numbers are incredible. And so how does a CEO, a busy person, choose, from a tool? Because the large language models, those are going to keep coming out we're going to keep using those. The question is there a tool that's leveraging a large language model to do something different? And the first thing that you want to make sure of is that it's solving a problem you already have, solving a problem you already know you have, because these tools are very fancy, the marketing is incredible, very engaging, and they have sort of a sense about how important it is that you use them. But if you don't have the problem that they're solving, that's obviously not a tool that you want to jump into. The second thing that I think is important is if you're looking at a tool and you have found that it can solve a problem that your company has, I think there are two things to look at. The first is how long has this company been around? How well is it funded? How much insight do you have into its roadmap, where it's going with its development? Those are things that you really want to consider because things are changing so fast. If you get engaged with a tool or a system that ends up being obsolete, loses its financing, then you're in a really tough place. So that's something I think from a business perspective you really want to make sure to attend to. And then there's a part of all of these artificial intelligence systems that I think we really want to pay attention to, which is what happens when it goes wrong. That's an important thing that I don't think a lot of these tools are talking about. But
Right.
just like any software system that has bugs, these artificial intelligence-based tools are going to have problems from time to time. So it's important to ask what happens when it goes wrong, what kind of error detection does it have, what kind of logging does it have, so I can see what, if you find out that something went wrong last week, then you go back a week and look at logs and see what happened. So those are some of the things you want to think about when you're looking at tools for your business.
Oh wow, very, very impressive and very good submission right there. I recently had a guest on the podcast in some of my previous episodes, and one thing that this guest mentioned, it was a discussion around artificial intelligence as well. It's very wide, so like there are very many aspects of AI that we can discuss. We actually can't exhaust discussions around AI because it's very, very wide, right? So this particular guest talked about AI in sort of like a mini god that can do lots of things, that basically can do everything and anything. So, Mr. Kevin, you do work a lot with some of these things, right? So, what are some of those misconceptions, the misunderstandings that people have about artificial intelligence? And this is to sort of get people's mind to understand what this thing that is deemed the mini god is like. So what are some of those misconceptions that you interface with in your line of work?
Yeah, I could probably go on for a while about this, but let me pick a couple that I think are important. The first thing that I want to say is most people, many people, think that the artificial intelligence chatbot and systems are some sort of large database, like an advanced Google search. You type in a question, it gives you an answer, as opposed to you going and checking 5 different websites. Now it's just giving you the answer. And a lot of people think that that's because it's searching a large database and presenting the answer to you. And that's incorrect. That's not the way this technology works. And I encourage anybody who's watching this or listening to take just 5 or 10 minutes to try and understand, watch a short video clip about what these large language models actually are. And in a nutshell, they are prediction systems. They're not a database. They are designed, they are trained to understand the English language, to understand all languages, and then to understand how to put sentences together and capture information. They're not storing that information. They're creating it. Their responses are being created from their training. And that's an important distinction, and it really applies to the notion that to the limitations of what this technology can and can't do. So I think that's an important one. The second thing that I want to point out is that the headlines that we read about 30% cost reductions and huge layoffs, as I said earlier in our interview, these are the large companies. These are the mega corporations that are spending a ton of money to implement very expensive, very sophisticated artificial intelligence solutions. And we're not going to see that at the medium and small business level for a long time, if at all. It really depends where the technology ends up going. So I think those are two sort of big ideas around artificial intelligence that people don't understand that I think are important to understand.
Nice, nice. So you see, personally, I like to look at artificial intelligence like staff, like my staff. So when I'm delegating it, I delegate tasks to artificial intelligence the same way I do delegate tasks to my staff. Okay, so looking at you and me, at least we've been in these spaces, so we basically know what tasks we should delegate to artificial intelligence, what tasks we need to be careful about, and what tasks we shouldn't let artificial intelligence even have a glimpse at, right? So like maybe in your own words, like what are those specifics tasks for someone who doesn't understand really, who's just a startup, who is just starting out, like what are those specific tasks that they can delegate to artificial intelligence, maybe like attending meetings and crafting those meeting minutes and whatnot, and then what are those other ones that they do need to be careful about, and then maybe one or two tasks that they shouldn't dare give to artificial intelligence because either it's very sensitive or puts the security of the organization or company at risk, maybe like basing on your own experience.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of answered the question in your question, and that's good. That means that you're certainly clear on how this works. So again,
Yeah.
the easiest analogy in my opinion is to think of artificial intelligence as a new employee, as an intern, somebody who is very smart but
Yeah.
doesn't know the specifics of your business. And you don't know how well they work. You just know they're really smart. They've got a great education. So um, tasks that are repetitive, tasks that are low risk, tasks that are easy to roll back and undo, those are the kinds of things that you want to deploy artificial intelligence against. And as you get comfortable, by all means, expand that to other tasks that aren't
Yeah.
as repetitive, that aren't as low risk. Certainly, I encourage you to do that as you gain more and more trust in the systems that you put in place. However, one of the things that I do want to point out right here is that people will, and this I think is a tendency of everybody, is as soon as you see that it's working well, it's very easy to just set it and forget it. Say, go and do the thing, I've seen you do it well. But you wouldn't do that with an employee, and you shouldn't do that with AI. You want to have regular quarterly reviews, review the output, review what's going on, make sure that something didn't change in the process, continue to fine tune. And that's an important point where people can often get just sort of lazy or relaxed about an artificial intelligence implementation, and a week, 3 weeks, a month go by, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my, it's been doing it wrong for so long and you didn't catch it. So I think that's an important thing to consider as you're implementing AI. And then the converse, as you said, you don't want artificial intelligence making decisions about finance, making decisions about legal issues, compliance issues. Those are things that you really want a human being to be involved with. And the truth is, we are starting to see technology built where AI can transact on your behalf. You can give it access to financials and it can make purchases. And those are things that you want to be incredibly cautious about, incredibly careful about, very constrained. If you are going to let that happen, put a cap on the amount of money that it can spend. But to me, those are really far out in terms of the implementation. And you really want to start close to the chest, steps, repetitive, easy to track, tasks as you're implementing to start.
Nice. Nice, nice. We tech people always talk about discussions around delegating the boring stuff to AI, or giving out tasks that are not, don't challenge your mind to AI, So maybe for a new business owner who is listening in right now, okay, what are those small and boring tasks can they delegate to AI but would actually save them time and money? Just one or two.
I think we've touched on a couple of them, but off the top of my head, meeting notes is a huge one. Um, Reviewing calendar is a really good one. Research, so whether you're researching a particular part of your business, or you're researching competitors, or you're researching potential clients or vendors, artificial intelligence can absolutely speed up that research and give you some summarization of large amounts of data very quickly. So I think those are probably some really quick wins of leveraging AI to help a small business.
Oh, nice. At the beginning of our discussion, I talked about how the whole of this week we've been having series of conversations and sitting on panels and discussing artificial intelligence. And one of the things that came out of the different discussions, there's some employees, by the way, who are scared of getting into artificial intelligence. So, like, some of them get a bit nervous when their bosses or when their employees are bringing out artificial intelligence or mentioning it to them, because they get scared that this is a robot that is coming to take over their seats. So maybe for an employer out there, how can they introduce artificial intelligence to their employees in a way that would sound generic, and in a way that wouldn't make the employees feel like this is something that is coming to take over their seats, or it's coming to take over their jobs?
Right. That's a real question. I think, a really important question to answer. So the first thing that I want to say is that, we talked about it earlier, we're not seeing artificial intelligence take over jobs at medium and small businesses. Large corporations, we are starting to see that, and that is a reality. We don't want to. I encourage people not to put their head in the sand. This is happening. People are definitely being displaced at large corporations by artificial intelligence. So that's a reality. And if you're a medium or small business owner deploying some type of AI, your team is going to be concerned, and they have every right to be concerned. So I think that's
Yeah.
important to be honest about that up front. That said, those are the big companies.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's not happening at the medium and small companies. What's happening at the medium and small companies is artificial intelligence can be brought in to take those mundane things off somebody's plate and give that person a few hours back in their week to do things that only they can do. It's really, the intention is to benefit the business. If you've got an employee, a smart person, a salesperson, for example, and part of their job after client calls, as we've talked about a couple times, is writing up notes. Well, they don't have to do that anymore. So that saves them 5-10 minutes per call. That saves them, an hour or 2 or 5 per week. That means they can make that many more calls. So what we're seeing in the small and medium-sized businesses is artificial intelligence being brought in a way to improve the company's performance, to generate more revenue, or to decrease expenses from things that artificial intelligence can take on. So I think that's an important perspective that an owner should bring to the table. The other thing I think that is actually quite interesting is to remind people that this is an opportunity for them to improve their own skills. So while the implementation of AI at a company will benefit that company, everybody using those systems is now getting a leg up on somebody else who's not using the systems. So
Yeah.
we are all going to be using artificial intelligence more and more in our jobs, all of us. And it will take a while before it gets into certain more physical industries, such as, let's say, trade, plumbing, electrical. We're not going to see it hit those as quickly as some others. But
Hmm.
anybody who's learned how to use AI, who has improved their own day to day or week by week processes by leveraging AI, they are themselves a more advanced and more marketable person as we continue down this path. So when a CEO comes and says, "Hey, we're implementing this AI system," you're going to be able to now say you've done X, Y, Z. That makes you more valuable in the marketplace. And I think that's actually a really nice spin on this as we're looking at these implementations.
Nice, nice. So that basically means that the employers have to find creative ways of introducing AI to their staff so that their productivity and their commitment to the company isn't swapped, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'm really enjoying this discussion, but as you know, every good thing has to come to an end. So maybe one last point of discussion for us. Maybe this will go like to the young and small business owner who is listening in maybe right now, or is watching and is curious on how they can improve their businesses or the enterprises using AI. So if you could give one or two candid advices to a business owner to take home, someone who is listening in right now, how can they actually make sure that AI is helping them or is working for them instead of the other way around? Like, what would it be if there is something that they can use AI, to work for them instead of the other way around? We talked about perceptions. We talked about limiting AI access either to your financial records or to your security records, because tech is growing every single day, right? You don't know who is going to hack into your AI system or who is going to get into some of your personal information. So maybe for one, what is that one thing that a small business owner can take home from our discussion?
I'm actually going to give three things
Yeah.
because I think they all sort of work with one another. The first, going back to something I talked about earlier, is you need to understand this technology. So step up the ladder. Start off with basic chats, buy the system, learn what prompting is, learn what context is, learn the application that you're using, because if you don't understand the tool, you're not going to be able to implement the tool. So take the time to learn the tool. That's number one. Number two, and this I think is actually, if I was to say only one, this is probably the one that I would say, which
Yeah.
is leverage AI to brainstorm how you could use AI in your business. Sit down with an artificial intelligence chatbot and say, "Hey, this is my business. How might I use AI to improve my performance, to cut some expenses, to create efficiencies," and have a conversation with AI. It is an amazing brainstorm tool. And that, to me, would be the one thing that I would say. But there is a third. And the third is, and we didn't talk about this a lot today, but the third is that with any type of automation, if you don't have good systems in place, if your standard operating procedures are not well documented, if this person does the system one way and this person does it a different way, if you try to automate that, you're going to automate a mess. And AI doesn't fix messes, it multiplies them. So the third tip that I would say is, if you are looking at implementing AI in your business, make sure that you've got your systems in order, that your data, your reporting, your constructs are in order before you use AI to multiply it. That really is an important thing to make sure before you implement artificial intelligence. So it'd be those three things that I would offer.
Nice, nice. Mr. Kevin, I would like to know your aha moments. Like it's in every line of work there is that moment where you feel like, okay, I did this and it hit home. I did a bit of research on your website, and one of the things that caught my eye was that you do explain AI to small businesses without using in plain English, without using buzzwords. So I would like to know your aha moments, like a time where you sat down with a small business owner, right? You explained to them artificial intelligence in the simplest possible English that made them understand. What was that moment as we come to a close of this podcast?
So this will require understanding a little bit about AI to really get the depth of it. But artificial intelligence, the way that we describe the communication that we have with artificial intelligence, we use the term prompting, which is basically the question that you ask. And with each question and each response, the context of the conversation continues to grow. Every question, every response, that is the context of the conversation. And the artificial intelligence models retain that context for the entire conversation. So it starts off, it doesn't know anything about you. You ask a question, gives an answer. You ask another question, gives an answer, and it builds up this context. The information in this context, as it grows, it's the capacity for the large language model, for the AI system, to retain all that information becomes more and more difficult. What they found is that actually, as conversations grow, they get 85% less efficient as they get larger and larger and larger. So the most important thing that hit me and that I was explaining actually to my wife was, if you are starting a new topic, start a new chat. Give it a brand new set of context and allow that context to grow. Because if you start a new topic in the same conversation that you've been talking about, you've been talking about meal planning, and now you want to talk about its science fair project, it's not going to give you the best answers. Start a new chat when you start a new topic.
Wow. I think that makes sense. There was this particular time I was having the usual conversations and putting in the different prompts on ChatGPT on one of the AI tools. So I think I didn't start a new chat. I continued a different conversation on that same thread. So like the responses were sort of mixed up, they were distorted. So I think that's a very good point to take home. When you're starting a new conversation, you need to start on a new thread. Start it as a new chat so that you don't mix up you don't confuse your AI chatbot. Otherwise, Mr. Kevin Howard Goldberg, thank you so much for speaking with me. I'm sure business owners, young small business owners out there will pick a leaf or two from these conversations. And thank you so much for making the time. Any parting shots as we close?
My pleasure, Ruth. It was great to connect with you, and anytime you and the audience have additional questions, happy to answer them. This is a real passion of mine, and I'm really excited to help people understand how to use this technology, because it's not magic, it's not a god, it's just technology, and there's a lot of really positive ways we can use it.
Nice. Thank you so much. And I think this brings us to the close of our conversation, and I appreciate you making the time to speak with me.
Awesome.
Did I say have a good afternoon, have a good night, or have a good evening?
Good morning, actually.
Good morning. Yes, you have yourself a good morning.